Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharp, and our headline for this week is, well, this week we are exactly 1 year out from statewide elections for Arizona's top 5 governmental offices, as well as a midterm election to determine if Arizona will keep sending 6 Republicans to represent Arizona in the U.S. House, or if that number gets reduced to 5 or maybe 4. And so it's time to welcome back our guest on the AZ Political Podcast. And I say welcome back because he's either the number 1 or number 2 person for most appearances on the AZ Political Podcast.
Secretary is it on the approval side or disapproval side?
No, I think it's on the approval side.
Okay.
Nice. And I think it's a function of, this is Secretary of State Adrian, by the way. And I think it's a function of the fact that your office oversees elections for the state. You don't administer those elections. That's up to the 15 different counties, right, to run those elections. But you are responsible for overseeing them and compiling the results and making sure they're doing it right.
Yeah. And so, like, when people ask, how does that work? I tell them, imagine that I'm a commissioner of a major league sports team, right? We set up the rules, we certify the officials, we certify the equipment, we make sure that the playing field is even and level, and then the counties are the teams. They go out there and they do the game. They call the plays, they kind of run things. So we are an integral and critical part of the whole, and then we try to get resources to the counties so that they can do their jobs better. So it's really, we work directly with all of the counties, but they're the ones that have direct contact with the voters and take care of the polling places and all that stuff.
So what you're saying, and I'm doing this to get you in trouble, the counties are really basically franchises of the Secretary of State's office.
No. Well, no. I mean, but I will say, it was very useful to my time as Secretary of State so far to have come from a county. Because the last time we had a county election officer who was the Secretary of State was Jim Shumway, like back in 83 or something like that. And since then, we've had some very skilled administrators in this office, but none of them had that direct county knowledge and kind of knew what the questions were going to be way ahead of time. So we've been able to prepare for and work with the counties, I think, much more effectively. And then there's still the rubs here and there and all that kind of fun stuff that happens. And that natural tension is necessary. But I think we've worked with them really, really well. And, even with the bumps in the road, sometimes it's just a matter of opinion. Heck, they've changed my mind once or twice. So it's a really good relationship that we have with the counties.
And for those who don't know, Adrian Fontes was Maricopa County Recorder.
Yeah.
And then between that and becoming Secretary of State, you were deputy in Pima County?
Yeah, I was. So in 2020, when I lost my election, Gabriela Cáceres Kelly, who had just won her first term as Pima County Recorder, asked me to come down and be her chief deputy. So I went from being the elected county recorder in Maricopa County to the chief deputy for the new county recorder. And so I went from the elected spot to the top employee spot.
You got experience in another county.
But it was super interesting too. So that role, because I always had my chief of staff there.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm somebody else's chief of staff.
Yeah.
So I got to sit there on the couch and say, you're wrong. And she's like, this is what we're doing. I'm like, okay, boss, you're the boss. So that was a lot of fun. It was, I won't say it was humbling. It was just a really great learning experience. And it gave me that extra perspective too.
Yeah. How do you feel about the security of Arizona's election systems when you're out? I mean, the Secretary of State's candidate page got hacked, we believe, by China, maybe?
Wait, somebody acting
Iran. Iran? Oh, that's right. It was Iran. That's right.
Yeah, the Ayatollah Khomeini is not exactly a popular figure in China. So it was the Iranians. But they put that guy's picture over my face and Kerry Lake's face and everybody else's face. It was embarrassing, I will say.
Is this a sign that they could actually get further access to the systems? I mean, can they change vote totals, or are really all they're capable of doing at this point is changing pictures?
Let's be really clear. We have redundancies upon redundancies within the system. This candidate portal that they got into was actually designed well before security was even a concern in elections. And so it was designed with its doors wide open to bring in as much information as possible.
Right.
So one of those routes was what they used to get into the system and then kind of putz around in there. As far as results and all that stuff, that comes up from the counties and goes the other direction. And so we've got sort of stop gaps along the way to make sure that whatever we're reporting out is correct and is official. And so if there was ever anything that happened where for some reason, like on election night, something happened with our portal, we would send out an alert immediately. Folks would be like, this is not the official results right now. We've got an issue, come over here. So we have redundancies set up, and we've got our ways of notifying the media and the public in case there's ever anything like that does happen. So we've actually kind of thought through a lot of these exercises in this time. But, it's the same thing I've been saying for years. In 2023, I asked for money for security for these specific systems. In 2024, I asked for money for these specific systems. In 2025, I asked for money. And I wasn't asking for tons. Right over those 3 years, it was a total. I didn't get any of it, and so real soon we're hoping to get a little nugget to help us on the way. But we've got a lot of folks that are very concerned about this, and with good reason. So we're doing the best we can with what we've got. But this is the effect of people saying, "Let's drown government in the bathtub because government is bad." Well, you don't want your elections to be screwed with. You don't want your public safety to be screwed with. You don't want your military to be screwed with. These are all forms and formats of government. So I think a much more balanced approach in the future is what's important, and we've got to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to security.
Not to send any signals out to hackers or foreign governments or any individuals who would hope to extort money out of Arizona or mess with our elections. But is there any part of our election systems in Arizona that worry you more than others?
Yeah, there are. I'm not going to tell you what they are.
That's kind of what I was trying to signal you there. Like don't say it if it's really going to screw us up. But
there are things that worry me. Nothing keeps me up at night. Okay, I don't worry that much. And the reason why is we've got an amazing team in the Secretary of State's office. In fact, we have one of the best IT security teams in the state. I'll happily put my team up against any other department in the state. And one of the reasons I know that that's true is because remember the CrowdStrike problem that happened a little over a year ago when everybody's point of sale system, like globally, it was this huge problem. Yeah. My office not only knew, but alerted the Arizona Department of Homeland Security within 5 minutes of that actually occurring. And by the next morning at 11 a.m., the Department of State was up and running at 100%. Everybody else was still trying to figure out what happened. Okay. So my people are really, really good. And I don't know if that has to do with the fact that the CISO that I appointed was the first election security officer in the country. I appointed him back in Maricopa County when I was the recorder. That probably has something to do with the fact that when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a classified materials controller. So I really am sensitive to information security and information security in these technology systems. Those are things that I really pay a lot of attention to. I can't imagine where we would be without those layers having been built in while we weren't really getting the resources we needed to do the technical fixes, but we actually built around where we've got. So right now, we've got kind of this donut of security, right? We've got a system in the middle that's not really great, but it's got this really robust security system around it. And so we're really working to get that thing secured and locked in with the resources that we have. And, God willing, in the creek, don't want some wood to knock on here.
Formica.
I think we'll be in pretty decent shape by the time we get to next fall.
Did you hear of any problems in this past week's elections from any of the counties? Did they have any problems?
No, we always have minor issues here and there. Right. I mean, one of the problems was I'm kind of, and I feel bad for the folks down in Pima County where I worked for a little while. They installed a bunch of drop boxes, but they underestimated how many people were going to be dropping off ballots. And so they had this one drop box there was so many people that concentrated in that area that the box kind of started overflowing, and it had a capacity of 1,500 ballots. It was down for 42 minutes. They couldn't open it because there was so many ballots in it. And so they sent a team down, and they got the bipartisan team. They secured all the ballots and they got them. But, it's kind of a good problem to have, right? Sometimes underestimating how much turnout is going to be is the good problem, because now people are excited. Yeah. People are voting. The system needs to engage. And much better to have that issue now during municipal elections instead of a year from now during the big midterm when everybody's, whatever, any tiny little thing like this could be turned into a giant conspiracy theory. Right. Because people have professionalized the grift of election denialism, and it doesn't matter what we do. If there's the tiniest little thing, they'll just scream conspiracy and go out there and raise a bunch of money and pay themselves on it.
Yeah, you don't want to be the next subject of a Dinesh D'Souza.
Well, I was the subject of 2,000 Mules. I was surprised they never used my name, though. Yeah.
Let's talk about where we stand when it comes to the confusion over whether people are actually citizens and eligible to vote, because we had that situation pop up. Tens of thousands of Arizona voters who never provided the legally required documented proof of citizenship. Not their fault. This was, we found this out all based on a 1996 Arizona law. It required proof of legal presence to get a driver's license, and then a 2004 law that mandates proof of citizenship to register. Take it from there, please.
Well, okay, I'll start from the beginning. It's not that they never provided the proof. Let's just be really clear.
Right.
Okay. What this is,
we don't have the proof that they provided the proof.
We don't have the documentation that shows that they provided the proof.
Right.
That having been said, the process was, if you were legally, starting in 96, if you were not legally present in Arizona, you couldn't get any state benefits. So there was proof of legal presence that was required up until 2004. Then it became proof of citizenship to vote.
Right.
Those are two very different things.
Right.
And the data system was never updated from one to the next. And so we had a whole bunch of people who were like, yep, you're good to go. And all of a sudden we're like, hold on a second. We don't see the document in the system that shows this person is a citizen, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we can show that they are a citizen now, but we didn't see the documentation in the system. So, I like, everybody can just kind of cool their jets. We're working on this, and we started last September. Then Recorder Stephen Richer and I entered into a friendly lawsuit because we needed a rule of law before the election.
Right.
So we went to the Supreme Court on a special action, which is legal terminology for, hey, guys, we need help now, right? And they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Everybody gets grandfathered in. Okay, and we were
for that election.
Well, the pleading said for that election, but the ruling from the court didn't specify a timeline. That's the interesting one. So this is like where you get that Paul Harvey rest of the story moment.
Yeah.
So the rest of the story is, now we have the assumption, which is not an unreasonable assumption, that we were only talking about the last election. So we come to all 15 counties. Now, voter registration belongs to the county recorders. Right. It doesn't belong to the Secretary of State. We try to standardize things so everybody gets treated equally, which is what you want. And they start going all cattywampus. And one wants to do this and they want to do that. They're independently elected constitutional officers. They have the right to deviate from any guidance that I give them unless it's law, which I don't write law. I just write some procedures. The legislature does. Okay. Because it was kind of a bunch of different interpretations of this, I went to the Attorney General and I'm like, can you give us an opinion? So at least we have a legal opinion as to where the state of Arizona is going to stand if this ends up in court. And Chris Mays, the Attorney General, gave us an opinion that says we're basically going to grandfather people in. A couple months ago, too, wasn't it? Not too long ago. In fact, her opinion went a little further than what I was asking for, which is fine. That, her legal team did it, and they very adeptly pointed out the Supreme Court said point blank, basically in plain English, they're grandfathered in. Now, what supports that, and I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was in that legal opinion, is that there are a variety of states who have enacted documented proof of citizenship laws, but they have a cutoff, and anything prior to that, folks are automatically grandfathered in.
Right.
So that folks who've been voting for years and years don't have to fall into the new requirement of documented proof of citizenship. So that is another sort of, when you get enough of these pieces of the puzzle together, what you're doing is you're saying, look, we understand that there's this newfound and totally unjustified paranoia about illegal aliens voting, which is not real. It's vanishingly rare. It does happen on super rare occasions, but it's just not a big deal. Okay, so all these people get swept up in this BS, and now we're going to be super draconian on American citizens, where we used to trust citizens to just say under penalty of perjury, I'm a citizen.
Right.
I am a citizen. That should be enough for you, Mr. Government. Not enough anymore. The government has to come in and get more paperwork. Okay, fine. I have an opinion on that, which should be pretty obvious, but that's the law. Now we're moving forward. And there's one or two counties that are still going under the old rubric where they're kind of canceling folks, or not, they're suspending folks. My view is this: at some point, they might get sued. And so what I would say to these folks out there in the other counties is follow the Attorney General's opinion so that all of the voters in the state are treated the same. Maricopa's doing it. Pima's doing it. Coconino is doing it. So all of our big counties are doing it. I'm hoping some of these other counties come along. Just in the spirit of equitable treatment, right under the law, equal justice under law. So we'll see how that develops.
Well, and I know in a lot of ways the state Republican Party and some of the county Republican parties are like, oh no, we want these people to be able to vote, because it wasn't like it was an overwhelming majority of Democrats who were on this list.
No, the Republicans would have lost more voters.
Yeah. So
if you strictly enforce this in the way where, unless you have the actual documentation, you can't vote, Republicans lose more voters.
Yeah.
That's just how the numbers play out. Huh. And I don't know that the Republican Party wants this. And generally speaking, it's the Republican majority counties that are doing this enforcement. So and that political consideration is very separate from my perspective.
Right.
You win, you lose, whatever. I've done both. I just think Arizonans ought to be treated fairly as Arizona voters, and each of the counties can then administer those rules.
Let's talk about a new-ish party, the Arizona Independent Party, which is, I think, kind of ironically, the former No Labels Party, which now has a label.
Found a label.
Tell me about that.
Well, one of the most wonderful things about my term as Secretary of State is that we've had several firsts. It's very rare that a brand new party, not a legacy renewal like the Libertarians or the Greens, who kind of come and go over the years, a brand new party emerges, a No Labels Party. So we had to figure out how to make that happen within the law, which in Arizona is super permissive. Like, just about any group of citizens can get together and create their own political party if they have the numbers. It's really easy in Arizona, which is great. It's good for democracy, right? Okay, my general principle: freedom of association, freedom of speech. Knock your socks off. No Labels gets created, I don't know what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something like that, that neighborhood. They end up with a new chair after the 2024 election. The new chair decides that they're going to reorganize, and they do. And in the course of that reorganization, they decide they want to change their name. That's never happened before. There's no rules that prevent it. There's no rules that regulate how that happens. And so we went and looked around. Once they sent us their request in writing, they said, hey, Mr. Secretary, we are the No Labels Party. We want to change our name to the Arizona Independent Party. This is what, please change our name. I didn't have a choice. The law would not, the law does not give me the capacity, like it does in other states. And in other states, it explicitly, like in California, the Secretary of State can recognize certain names as long as they don't interfere with pattern and practice or tradition. Things like they've got some stuff like that.
You can't form the Democratic-ish party.
Yeah, I mean, there's rules, okay? I don't know. I'm not a California guy. I like California, but not that much. Anyway, I didn't have any of those restrictions. And again, Arizona is very permissive in the way that it allows folks to do this. It's a very progressive way of looking at the world. And so I didn't have a choice. Not that I would have wanted to, because it's their party. It's their people. Let them let's just be fair. Yeah. Well, so that's as it pertains to that group of people. They changed their name. It's effective December 1st, 2025, in a few weeks as we're talking here today. Here's the problem, and it's not a them problem, it's an everybody else problem. Because in statute and in the rules, we already consider the notion of and recognize the moniker, the tag of independent voter. But there's no legal status of independent voter.
Right.
It's a party not designated.
Party not designated.
Is what it's called. So it's a PND voter officially, but we recognize it. When somebody puts IND on their voter registration form, they're party not designated. But because we've had so many complaints over the years, county recorders who are in charge of this have been putting INDs on voter registration cards. And people are like, I'm independent. Well, in Arizona, the practice and tradition tells us these folks are not party affiliated. Now we have party affiliated independents. So you have two buckets of voters in Arizona, affiliated with a party and not affiliated. And you have a tiny little group of these guys over here, which is actually the third largest party in the state right now, that were No Labels who've shifted their name. So now you have affiliated independent and non-affiliated independent, which is confusing. And so we're figuring out how we're going to administer this and how we're going to educate the general public about it. Because here's the problem. Let's say you go fill out a voter registration form. You want to be part of the Arizona Independent Party. You put IND. I have to assume, because there's no extra words on there, that you're following the old pattern and practice, and I'm going to make you party not designated. But if you put IND party, now I'm going to put you in with the affiliated independents, affiliated with that organized party.
Right.
A little confusing.
It is.
A little confusing, and it's going to be a task to educate people. So what we are hoping is that we can work with the county recorders, who are our registrars of voters in each of our counties, and get them to come up with a overtime plan where we can slowly but surely adjust the language culture in Arizona elections, so that when we're talking about independence, we're actually talking about party-affiliated Arizona Independent Party voters, not the unaffiliated party not designated voters.
This is going to make my job a lot harder. And by the way, people, this is a sign. Words matter.
Words matter. Yeah. Words matter. Yeah. And so it's challenging on that side. But look, again, as I indicated before, these folks have the freedom to associate. They've got the freedom of speech, and they can affiliate themselves as a political party. Arizona is very permissive in this, and the secretary's job is limited. And so I exercised only the amount of authority that I could, and they're doing their thing. So now there's a lot of implications beyond just what happens inside their party and the administrative part. There's political implications, and boy, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people like what they stand for, but it's also, once you actually put a label on it, you're not really independent anymore, are you?
Well,
because you're associated with somebody. You're not independent anymore.
Here's the thing. Let me get a little nerdy on you for a second here.
It's okay.
There's very few voters out there who are truly not party affiliated, or at least don't have a heavy party lean.
You lean one way or the other.
Right. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party both have their negative numbers. They're both unpopular. People like being affiliated with a group. That's fine. But there's plenty of people who, in fact, I've got a buddy who was a Republican for a very, very long time. And he always voted Republican because he was like, I'm a Republican. And then one day he got tired of, for whatever reason, he became an independent. And he was like, within 2 weeks of actually signing the form, he's like, I was looking at things totally differently. And it's just because of the label that he had put on himself. And taking that off made him just think differently. And I was like, that's really interesting. So, but again, as to party not designated voters, or this sort of, I'll say, in quotes, independent thinking voters, there are very few who fall outside of the binary, because we're in a binary culture right now.
Yeah.
And this middle has been growing through fits and starts, and it's an issue by issue middle. It's not a whole movement middle.
Right.
So are we seeing the beginning of a movement in an organized way? I don't know. What does that mean for my party, for the Republican Party? I don't know. But it's just a really, really interesting time if you're a politics nerd in Arizona to be watching this, because this is the first state. We're the first state to do a lot of stuff, and I'm proud of that. This one, though, if you're a partisan, you might be a little nervous.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your party, so I'm going to ask you to take off the Secretary of State's hat and put on your Democrat hat for a minute, and let's talk about what you think Tuesday's results, places like Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City. What does that mean for 2026?
Well, look, I don't know that anybody really believes that. We'll focus on the one that the media all focuses on, is New York City, that mayor's race. I don't know that anybody truly believes that guy's going to be able to accomplish about a third of what he said he's going to accomplish.
I think their city council is bigger than our legislature.
Yeah, and so I'm there's all this hyperbole about, he's a communist, he's a socialist, blah 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 blah. Him winning this race wasn't about his policies so much as it was about his personality. His authenticity, his willingness to confront the bigotry that he faced and the racism that he faced, and call it what it was. Stupid, right? In Virginia, the new governor, super authentic, right? Typical well-educated suburban white mom, right? Had her 3 daughters on the stage. I don't know if you saw this. I was kind of catching some of the speeches. at one point during her acceptance speech, she's like, everything was going so well today, except, and then she name checks one of her kids, one of the 3 daughters. She's like, Chelsea, I think, except Chelsea didn't finish cleaning her room. Did she? And she turns around and looks at her daughter, and the daughter, you can hear her yelling, I'm working on it, Mom. And it was so authentic, right? And then same thing in New Jersey, right? What we're seeing right now is the scripted, well-prepared, buttoned up type of, politicians who are reading their statements all the time. People don't like that anymore.
Yeah.
They want authenticity. They want people to know your business and be honest about who you are. That's all they want, right? Because we all as a culture have matured to the point where we understand all of us have flaws.
Right.
None of us is perfect. Not a single one of us walks on water. Okay. We are not ideological purists. None of us. We have to sometimes do some compromise when we're leading. So we can't promise the world and then deliver the world because that's not real. And so why not just be authentic? Why not just be who you are? Have a little bit of excitement, a little bit of passion about the people that you're serving and the things you want to do. That's what won last night. Or not last night, Tuesday, whenever it was. Yeah. I think that's what won in these bigger statewide races and in a lot of the other races too. And I honestly think that that's what the American people are looking for. They want people that they can relate to. Is that old George W. Bush thing, right? I'd like to sit down and have a beer with this guy. Right. I would still love to sit down and have a beer with that guy. I don't believe in a lot of his policies. Yeah. But that's like we can separate the policy.
He's a decent guy.
Thank you.
Right?
He was a decent guy. And even in his flaws, even with his flawed past, the allegations of, whatever, no reason to bring any of it up. We all have colorful pasts. You can't go through life without tripping up here and there. That's how you learn. That's how you grow and mature. That's how you become able to deal with adversity. There has to be some adversity. Right? So none of us are saints. That's awesome. And what these winning candidates all showed was that they were willing to be authentic, they were willing to be relatable to the public, and they were willing to just kind of put it out there and say, you're getting what you see. There's no hidden agenda here. There's no super scripted, I want to be super careful. The worst campaigns are the ones where people try not to lose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's never worked in sports. It's never worked in broadcasting, and it doesn't work in elections.
Right. Sun Devils, 1997 Super Bowl, right?
Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl. Yeah. Well, it was a Super Bowl for us. Right. That prevent defense against John Cooper and the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Killed us.
Yeah.
2 pass interference plays. We shouldn't have done it. We would have won the Rose Bowl that year. And it kills me to this day. That is a politician running to not lose. And you're never going to see me do that because that's not who I am. I want to win. And I'm going to win as me. I'm not going to win as some scripted automaton with the perfect hair, which I'm losing all of, or the perfect smile or the perfect physique. That's not who I am. And so there's no sense trying to fake people out because they can smell the BS a mile away. It's a fool's errand to try to be somebody that you're not in politics. Folks are figuring that out. And I think that I think it's less about policy than it is about sort of the personalities and being like, okay, I might not agree with everything this person is saying, but at least I know I can trust that person to tell me the truth.
So I think merely my last question for you is it's personal for me, and that is and you have kids, so is being in elected office help you make your kids clean their room? Because I might consider actually running for office because I've got a 12-year-old. Oh, dear heaven.
I will tell you that this adventure of political office, and I'm coming up on 10 years now.
Wow.
In March of 2026, it'll be March 22nd, 2026 was the day of the presidential preference election. You remember that in 2016 with those long lines?
Yeah.
That was the day I got mad and decided to run for county recorder.
Right.
It's a seminal moment in my life. But I can't say that it's been better for my family than if I had stayed out.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
There have been a lot of missed concerts. a lot of family events. There's been a lot of moments that I just wasn't there for whatever reason. They've made some sacrifice, and they've gained some benefits too. They've gotten to do some really cool stuff, you know. So it's not all woe is me. That's not real. But in balance, you know, when you do big stuff like this, you got to make some sacrifices. And unfortunately, your family has to do some sacrificing too. And I'm very, very, very fortunate. I've got a wife who is just 100% behind me, warts and all. Not that I have warts, but she's behind me. She would be if I had warts.
You admitted to losing your hair.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like you can hide it. I mean, I've got this weak comb over going, and it's just not working. I may shave the whole thing off soon.
It's nice.
But I'm having a good time with it, and they get it. My kids are old enough now that they're like, you know what, Dad, you're doing good things for a lot of people, and that's what matters. So it doesn't help get them to clean their room, though. So I'm sorry to disappoint you. I would hold off.
All right.
I would just stay on the sidelines for a minute.
I'm just going to shame her on the radio. That's what I'm going to do. All right. Thanks a lot, Adrian. Appreciate
Happy to be here.
Adrian Fontes, Arizona Secretary of State. Thank you for catching the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharp, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharp. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.